Need for Speed Unbound is proving to be divisive. The bold comic book style visuals are a breath of fresh air, in our opinion at least, but the core gameplay is overly familiar. From the intense cop chases to the aforementioned art style, there's a lot to like about Need for Speed Unbound, but unfortunately, a few setbacks prevent it from being the true return to form it deserves to be. We think the game is just a few tweaks away from being a much better experience, and so with that in mind, I'm Mark from RacingGames, and here are 5 changes that would drastically improve Need for Speed Unbound. Need for Speed Unbound's open world is set in the fictional Lakeshore City. There's a lot of variety, from twisty country roads to highways and even a quarry. Escaping the cops in narrow alleys, hunting down collectibles and smashing billboards is brilliant fun, evoking memories of Criterion's Burnout Paradise. But what lets the open world down is the lack of fast travel letting you teleport to map locations. We take this for granted in other open world games, but you can't even fast travel to garages or safe houses in Need for Speed Unbound. While this encourages you to explore every inch of Lakeshore City and adds tension when returning to safe houses to stash money after escaping the cops, driving to the same locations to start events gets tedious quickly. An option to skip straight to events outside of police pursuits would save time and improve the game's pace, particularly in the early stages when money is tight and you're stuck with your underpowered starter cars. Charging a small in-game fee would discourage players from overusing fast travel, but only if EA doesn't exploit this with microtransactions, of course. We've got a whole video dedicated to this topic, but now we've had our hands on the game for a while, we still think this needs addressing. When we first saw the gameplay reveal, the feeling of speed when racing through Lakeshore City was noticeably lacking. Thankfully, the final game lets you apply motion blur and camera shake effects, but even with these effects turned all the way up, Need for Speed Unbound still seems to lack speed. Admittedly, the sense of speed improves when activating nitrous boosts thanks to the field of view changes, but when you aren't boosting, tearing up the streets at 150 miles per hour feels like you're cruising at 30 on a leisurely Sunday drive. The only time you realise just how fast you're actually travelling is when you overcook a corner entry and crash out of a race. Speaking from personal experience, this is incredibly frustrating. Sure, I could just keep my eyes on my speed in the bottom corner, but then I'm not exactly looking where I'm going when I'm travelling at the speed I'm now all too aware of. Need for Speed Unbound needs to do something to make the feeling of speed just that bit more enthralling. Before we move on, have you subscribed to RacingGames yet? Just one click and you're on the RacingGames grid. Oh, and hit that notification bell too so you never miss an upload. Alright, on with the video. Unlike Need for Speed Heat, single player and multiplayer are separate in Need for Speed Unbound. Garage cars you've bought in the single player campaign aren't transferred to the multiplayer, meaning you essentially have to start your game progress from scratch when playing online. Unfortunately, the current state of Need for Speed Unbound's online multiplayer doesn't really give you any incentive to do this. Although crossplay is supported, several key multiplayer modes are currently missing at launch. At the time of recording, there are no online cop chases, takeover events, or even nighttime cruising in online multiplayer. And while up to 8 players can enter race playlist events, multiplayer parties are downgraded from 8 players in Need for Speed Heat to only 4 in Need for Speed Unbound. There is hope, however, as EA have stated these missing features aren't available at launch. Hopefully this means they will be added in future updates, because Need for Speed Unbound's bare bones online multiplayer desperately needs fleshing out to keep players coming back after completing the single player campaign. Lakeshore City is a big place. It'll be awesome to get to explore it with friends in a fully rounded out online experience. Need for Speed Unbound boasts the largest car roster of any Need for Speed game. At launch, there are over 140 cars, from ASAP Rocky's heavily modified Mercedes to the legendary BMW M3 GTR from Need for Speed Most Wanted. However, most cars in Need for Speed Unbound are borrowed from Need for Speed Heat. There are a few welcome new additions to the roster, such as the electric Lotus Emira sports car and the 2020 Chevrolet Corvette Stingray, but the car list otherwise feels just a little outdated. This is a gripe we also have with Gran Turismo 7, but seems more prominent in a game set in a supposedly thriving city. Audi and Toyota are also conspicuously absent. Toyota is notoriously reluctant to license cars in racing games other than in Gran Turismo and Forza. Unfortunately, this means the Toyota Supra has been missing in Need for Speed for years, despite it being one of the most iconic tuner cars of all time. Audi, on the other hand, was in Need for Speed Heat, so the German brand's absence in Need for Speed Unbound is strange. It's not clear if Need for Speed Unbound will get any DLC to expand the car list either. The Aston Martin DB11 Volante and McLaren F1 were the only DLC cars added to Need for Speed Heat after launch, and EA hasn't revealed any update plans or season passes for Need for Speed Unbound. We would love to see more cars added to the game in future, just to give us more vehicles to explore the map with if anything. The driving effects are easily the most divisive feature in Need for Speed Unbound. Taking the series in a bold new direction, Need for Speed Unbound's visuals blend photorealistic car models and environments with eye-popping cartoon effects and cel-shaded characters that look like they came out of Spider-Man Enter the Spider-Verse. Need for Speed Unbound's dazzling driving effects are integrated surprisingly well, ranging from wings superimposed onto your car when performing jumps to colourful tyre smoke when doing burnouts. Now, as you all know, we here at RacingGames are huge fans of this new art style, but it has also proved to be the most divisive aspect of the game. While the new style does help Need for Speed Unbound stand out, the driving effects are an acquired taste. You can tone them down, but there's no option to turn off the driving effects completely at the time of recording, much to the dismay of some players. We think making the effects toggleable will appease those who aren't fans of the art style, without losing it completely for those who are. The game doesn't rely too heavily on the cartoonish graphics, so the overall experience wouldn't be hampered by switching them off. That's our list of changes we'd like to see made to Need for Speed Unbound. Got any suggestions of your own? Why not leave them down in the comments below, and be sure to join in on the conversation while you're there. For now though, thanks for watching. I've been Mark from RacingGames. Be sure to subscribe for all things Need for Speed Unbound. Now I'm off for another long drive across Lakeshore to the next meetup.